So that time frame where I kind of moved from study coordinator through into a startup role and eventually managed a startup team was largely attributed to COVID, to be perfectly honest, when the rest of the world shut down and New Zealand just kind of kept on going. We were a hotspot for clinical trials. So globally, a lot of sponsors were wanting their studies to continue. So we came on board as a rescue site, but not even that. We also came on board to initiate some studies that needed to be done as well. So that was an opportunity for not just my company at the time, but also New Zealand as a whole. It was a time for our industry really to sink or swim, and we swam. So that's kind of how the company grew. And when a company grows, obviously more opportunities become available. You have the need to sort of slightly restructure and make sure that all your eggs aren't in one basket. So that's how the startup department came to be. Didn't used to exist at the site that I worked at. So I put myself forward to be the startup associate. So that's basically I did not the regulatory, because the CRO mostly handled the regulatory, but everything ethics. So I just kind of had to be the SME and figure a lot out, navigate through that unknown territory. Obviously, again, continue to grow. You need more people within that team. So I progressed to senior startup associate and eventually startup team lead, where I managed a small team. And is a very efficient structure, actually having a startup department. It means that everything can move quite efficiently before it gets handed off to the study coordinator.
Yeah, because that startup piece is quite a different skill set, isn't it? I mean, knowing in the ins and outs of the ethical side of things, what documents need to prepare, what should go on those documents, what changes need to be made to make them country-specific or site-specific, and making sure that we make best use of the pace at which we, again, you can comment if that's changed.
Still fast.
Good, very good. That we have in New Zealand. But yeah, it's important that you brought up the point that as companies grow, that's when the opportunities really do come about. I mean, you can be as amazing a startup coordinator or a study coordinator as you can, but if the company's not growing, if the industry's not growing, there will be a ceiling, and the ceiling will be a lot lower than for a really fruitful, productive industry. I mean, it's great to see that, like you said, through COVID, New Zealand kept chugging along just by virtue of the fact that we're isolated at the bottom of the world, really sealed off our borders, which will make a lot of people very unhappy. But, our industry seemed to be, quite the benefactor of some of those decisions in a certain regard, especially compared to overseas. So, I mean, I think it's fantastic. Obviously, again, that's not to understate, your successes personally or your aptitude, but it's a combination. It's like you work hard plus the opportunities with the company growing, right?
A bit of luck.
Yeah.
It always
Definitely.
goes a long way.
But also putting your hand up, because if the squeaky, like the adage says, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. If you don't put your hand up, don't put yourself forward for things, sorry, no one's going to come in and save you and give you that next leg up opportunity.
Yeah. And even when I put my hand up to do that startup role, I set up a couple of studies, not too many. I actually didn't know an awful lot about it, but I kind of saw that as a challenge to step into that area. I just knew that I liked setting up studies. I liked a little bit of medical writing, so there's where your extrapolation from a protocol into an informed consent form comes into play. And I kind of liked the idea of getting given something and working towards quite challenging timelines sometimes. I don't think people understand the work that goes into startup, but quite challenging timelines, and actually being able to achieve those timelines, package up a study and then be like, here you go, it's ready to start. It's quite rewarding.
And the role has a bit more of a shorter per study, that is, a shorter time frame. If you're if you're a project manager or a study coordinator, that study could be 18 months, 2 years, from beginning to end, and you're just slogging out that study. Whereas in the startup game, 3 months on to another study, on to another project. It gives you that variety. What kind of soft skills? Sorry, taking it back, you said something really interesting, which I really like, is that you didn't know too much about the startup side of things. You just wanted a challenge. Yeah. My grandfather, he fought in World War II during the Navy, and he had this classic story. And I'm probably going to butcher it, but when he was doing his training, when all the seamen got together and did a muster, the sergeant or whatever it was, the commander or something, went down the line and asked various questions, and one of the men said, in response to the question, "I don't know," and he just got the biggest dressing down of all time. "You don't know, you don't know." And the irony was that there was no way that he could have known the answer. And he went down to the next man, asked him the same question, and he said, "I'll find out, sir." So he didn't know, no one knew, but the attitude was, he'll find out, he'll make it happen. And I think that's missed for a lot of people. That's like a good lesson to learn, is that even if you don't know, doesn't matter. The real skill is being able to confidently say that you can find it out and deliver on finding it out.
Absolutely. Everything's teachable as well.
Yep.
The resources are out there. It's just having the right attitude.
I mean, having a quick Google search, you can figure most things out, right? Pick up a phone call and you can solve most problems or most procedural issues. Yeah. So what prompted the move from the site level to the sponsor level? On paper, they look like polar ends of the spectrum, but like you said, all part of the same ecosystem. What prompted that move?
I think to start, I don't see them as kind of polar ends of the spectrum. Again, I see the clinical trial industry kind of as a whole, and then everyone has a role to play within that industry. It comes down again to, we discussed a bit of luck, a bit of opportunity. I had been working at a site for just under 5 years. So I felt that at that point in time, this was a good opportunity for me to move on and upskill in my career. I think this is the mentality that I approach a lot of the things that I do with, is that I like to be a small fish in a big pond. I like to surround myself with the unknown and a lot more experience, and I just like to challenge myself. Now, I definitely still had that at the site level, but I again saw this opportunity pop up, and I'm not sure how often an opportunity to work at a sponsor level within New Zealand would actually pop up. We don't really have many sponsor feet on the ground opportunities in New Zealand. So for me, it was kind of a now or never sort of decision, a hard decision. I was very comfortable, I was very happy where I was, but I think that is kind of all the more reason to move